Every morning, long before the city outside stirred to life, I would arrive at Sterling Corporation. The polished granite lobby was always quiet then, the only sounds the hum of the ventilation system and the soft pad of my own footsteps. For 15 years, this was my routine. My name was Sarah Jenkins, a facilities assistant. Just Sarah, the quiet woman in the simple navy uniform who kept the building clean. 15 years of being invisible. It is amazing how thoroughly people can fail to see you when they do not expect you to be there, or perhaps when they simply do not consider you worth seeing. Executives would stride past me in the hallways, eyes fixed on their phones or the distant horizon of their important thoughts, never making eye contact, never offering a simple good morning. I was a ghost in the machine, a necessary but unnoticed function of the gleaming corporate world they inhabited. My shift started in the quietest corners, stocking paper in the restrooms, emptying the overflowing bins in the lower departments. But my true work began when I made my way upstairs, towards the executive suites. Daniel Sterling's office was my final stop before the sun came up. He was the CEO, the man whose name was on the door, and he was meticulous about his space. Desk organized at perfect right angles, windows spotless, not a speck of dust anywhere. He was obsessed with appearances, with control, with projecting an image of flawless success. He never knew that the woman polishing his glass table, the woman he walked past every single day, had co-founded the company whose name he bore like a crown. He never knew that I, Sarah Jenkins, the facilities assistant, held the keys to his entire kingdom. There was one person on the facilities team who always made me feel slightly less like a ghost, Maria. She worked the same early shift, her energy and chatter a stark contrast to my deliberate silence. "Morning, Sarah," she'd say, her smile genuine. "Another day, huh? Heard Mr. Sterling's been on a rampage again about the coffee machine filters. Honestly, you'd think we were hiding gold in there." Maria's casual complaints and everyday gossip were more valuable than she knew. They were the ground-level perspective Daniel completely ignored, hinting at the real frustrations and inefficiencies bubbling beneath the polished surface. Listening to Maria or to James, a perpetually stressed middle manager who sometimes vented near the loading dock, I learned about missed deadlines, underpaid teams, and Daniel's increasingly erratic management style. They saw me as a safe, silent ear, never suspecting the information I was quietly filing away. Lately, the hum in the building had been louder, filled with excited whispers about the upcoming merger with Synergy Solutions Incorporated. Executives were practically buzzing, picturing their stock options and bonuses. Daniel Sterling was at the center of it all, his arrogance reaching new heights. I would see him holding court in the break room he rarely visited before, laughing loudly, taking all the credit. The merger, he claimed, was a testament to his brilliant leadership, proof of how he had steered Sterling Corp through tough times and built it into a global target. I would mop the floor nearby, my face expressionless, while inside, a cold, slow-burning fire steadily grew. It had been 15 years since I was Scarlett, the partner who had built Sterling Corp alongside Daniel. We were ambitious, fresh out of school, complementary halves of a whole. I had the strategic vision, the technical expertise, the drive to innovate. Daniel had the charisma, the salesmanship, the ability to charm the room. We built something amazing, fueled by shared dreams and relentless hard work. The name Sterling was his family name, a nod to tradition, but the company was ours. Then came the crisis. The markets crashed in 2008, and our stock took a hit. It was a difficult time for everyone, requiring tough decisions. I was on a crucial business trip overseas, negotiating a vital partnership that could have stabilized us. During the trip, I was involved in a severe car accident. It left me physically injured and effectively cut off from communication for several weeks, recovering in a foreign hospital. Daniel saw his chance. While I was incapacitated, unable to defend myself or even fully understand what was happening, he moved. He conspired with a few key board members, painting a picture of my instability and inability to handle the crisis due to my accident and recovery. He called an emergency board meeting, knowing I could not return in time. By the time I was well enough to travel back, it was done. I had been voted out. He did not stop there. To solidify his control and prevent any challenge, he launched a vicious smear campaign. He spread rumors about my emotional state, questioning my judgment even before the accident. And he forged documents, convincing-looking signatures on waivers of voting rights, minutes from meetings I never attended. It was a meticulous, brutal corporate assassination. I returned to find my name dragged through the mud, my position gone, my reputation in the industry ruined. I tried to fight. I hired lawyers, but proving forgery was incredibly difficult and prohibitively expensive against Sterling Corp's army of legal minds. Every door in the industry was closed to me, thanks to Daniel's lies. My savings dwindled rapidly as I fought a losing battle. I lost everything that mattered. My career, my standing, my friends who believed Daniel's narrative. That is when the rage solidified into something cold and calculated. I could not beat him in the open, not yet. But I could wait. I could watch. I could play a different game, a longer one. I sold my remaining pittance of shares, less than 5% at that point, and used that capital, along with some carefully managed existing assets, to create an intricate layered network of shell companies and offshore trusts. It was complex, designed to be opaque, a financial maze. Working through intermediaries who had no idea of the ultimate beneficiary, I began buying up Sterling Corp stock whenever it was undervalued. Daniel's aggressive, often reckless, expansion plans meant the company frequently needed capital, leading to dips in stock price that were opportunities for my hidden entities to accumulate holdings, piece by painstaking piece. But buying shares was not enough. I needed to be close. I needed to understand every single aspect of the company Daniel was now running, the good, the bad, and the deeply hidden. I needed to see his management style firsthand, identify his weaknesses, learn his secrets. So, I did the one thing he would never ever expect. I became invisible within the very walls of Sterling Corporation. I took a job as a facilities assistant, under the name Sarah Jenkins. He did not recognize me. How could he? The ambitious, sharp young woman he betrayed looked nothing like the quiet, middle-aged Sarah, in a faded uniform. I deliberately changed my appearance, a different hairstyle, minimal makeup, simpler clothes, even learning to walk with a slightly stooped posture that made me seem smaller, less significant. My goal was to fade into the background, to be utterly unremarkable. When Daniel's eyes slid past me in the hallway, I knew my disguise was perfect. For 15 years I watched. I emptied trash cans that sometimes contained crumpled drafts of sensitive documents executives were too lazy to properly dispose of. I restocked paper in boardrooms after late-night meetings, sometimes finding notes or diagrams left behind. I listened to phone calls echoing from offices I was cleaning, piecing together fragments of conversations. I learned about failing projects Daniel publicly hailed as successes, about his excessive spending on vanity projects, about the growing strain on the company's finances. I saw the frustration of talented employees like James being overlooked while sycophants were promoted. I learned every creak, every hidden corner, every blind spot in the gleaming facade of Sterling Corp. I knew this company from the ground up. Unlike Daniel, who only understood the view from the penthouse, I understood the foundations, the stress support beams, the places where cracks were forming unseen by management. And then I found it. The confirmation I had been waiting for. It was late one night, cleaning the boardroom after an unusually long, tense meeting. Tucked under the heavy oak table, half hidden by a chair leg, was a crumpled piece of paper. It was a preliminary term sheet from Synergy Solutions Incorporated, outlining the framework for a billion-dollar acquisition of Sterling Corp. A slow smile spread across my face. The time was finally coming. My long game was nearing its end. My intelligence gathered over 15 years told me exactly why Daniel needed this merger. His aggressive, debt-fueled expansion had finally caught up to him. The company was bleeding cash, significant loans were coming due, and he did not have the liquid assets to cover them. The merger was not a triumph of his leadership. It was a desperate act of survival for him. But Daniel did not realize the full picture. He did not know that the Sarah Jenkins cleaning his boardroom was also the silent force that had spent years strategically acquiring stock in both Sterling Corp and Synergy Solutions Incorporated through a web of entities so complex it was virtually impenetrable. Nor did he know that, through carefully managed anonymous channels, I had been feeding verifiable information about Sterling Corp's true financial state and Daniel's questionable management directly to key figures within Synergy Solutions, like Mr. Harrison, who were astute enough to have their own private concerns about the deal. I continued my routine, watching Daniel strut around with increasing smugness as the merger date approached. He loved playing the part of the visionary CEO who had built everything. "This merger will cement my legacy," I overheard him telling a group of fawning executives in the break room one morning while I wiped down the counters. "Sterling Corp will be a global powerhouse." I kept my back to them, wiping slowly. If they had bothered to look, they might have seen the slight curve of my lips. Daniel had no idea his legacy was about to be buried under the weight of his own deceit. The merger announcement went public. Sterling Corp stock soared. Daniel was everywhere: television interviews, magazine covers, industry panels. The media ate up the story of the brilliant CEO who had navigated the company through crisis and built it into a billion-dollar target. All that was left was the final shareholder vote and the signing ceremony. Daniel was supremely confident. He believed he controlled the majority of voting shares through various alliances and arrangements. He had no idea about the 75% of my shares that were waiting hidden for this exact moment. 60% in Sterling Corp directly, and the balance held through my strategic stake in Synergy Solutions, giving me leverage on both sides of the table. That is when my carefully hidden network began to move. Quietly, anonymously, my shell companies began to vote against the preliminary merger terms. Then another and another. Daniel's legal team was in a frenzy, scrambling to identify these mysterious dissenting shareholders. They ran into the impenetrable wall of my corporate maze, spanning multiple countries and jurisdictions. I watched Daniel's panic grow from my vantage point. His perfectly organized office became a disaster zone. Papers were strewn everywhere, coffee cups left unwashed, blinds askew. He stopped noticing whether his trash bins were empty or his floors were clean. He was too consumed by the threat he could not identify. One evening, while I was finishing my rounds, I overheard him shouting into his phone in his office. "What do you mean you can't find them? Who owns these companies? I need to know who's blocking this. This deal has to go through. The bank loans are coming due, and without this merger..." He stopped abruptly, realizing he was speaking too loudly, even though he thought he was alone. But I heard the raw fear in his voice. His house of cards was not just wobbling, it was starting to collapse. That night, as I cleaned his office for the very last time, I looked at the wall covered in awards and magazine covers celebrating Alexander Sterling's genius. He used his full name publicly, of course. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the invisible facilities assistant would remind him of the partner he had betrayed 15 years ago. I adjusted his desk back to its perfect right angle, polished his windows until they gleamed, and emptied his trash bin one final time. In a few hours, Daniel Sterling would learn that appearances are often deceiving, and that true power does not always wear a designer suit. The morning of the merger signing, I did not go to Sterling Corp in my uniform. Instead, I went to my small, nondescript apartment and opened the closet I had kept locked for 15 years. Inside hung a perfectly tailored suit in a deep charcoal gray. Not flashy, but undeniably expensive, cut with quiet authority. I took my time getting ready, meticulously erasing every trace of Sarah Jenkins. The simple hairstyle was styled differently, the minimal makeup replaced by something subtle yet enhancing. I stood straight, letting go of the slight stoop I had maintained for so long. It was amazing how a change in posture could instantly shed years of feigned invisibility. I was no longer Sarah Jenkins. I was Scarlett Hayes. The signing ceremony was scheduled for 10 o'clock in Sterling Corp's main conference room. I arrived at 9:45, not through the employee entrance I had used for 15 years, but through the grand main lobby. Jim, the security guard who had always been kind to the facility staff, did a visible double-take as I walked past, his brow furrowed in confusion, unable to place the confident woman in the sharp suit. I took the executive elevator to the top floor, breathing in the subtle scent of the expensive leather interior I had polished countless times. When I stepped out, Chloe, Daniel's perpetually stressed assistant, was arranging bottles of sparkling water outside the conference room. She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said politely, not recognizing the woman who had emptied her trash every night. "The merger signing is a private event." I offered her a small, kind smile. "I know," I said, my voice steady, completely different from the quiet mumble of Sarah Jenkins. "I am a major shareholder." The conference room filled quickly. Daniel Sterling's legal team, the executives from Synergy Solutions Incorporated, board members from both companies, all in their finest suits, radiating an air of confident formality. They believed this was just a rubber stamp. Daniel swept in at 9:55, his timing calculated for maximum effect. He paused in the doorway, surveying the room. His eyes landed on me, sitting at the head of the table, the seat he usually occupied. He looked surprised, but his practiced corporate smile did not falter. He walked towards me, hand extended. "I do not believe we have met," he said smoothly. "Daniel Sterling." I stood up slowly, savoring the moment, drawing myself up to my full height. I did not take his hand. "Actually, Daniel," I said, my voice clear and strong, carrying across the hushed room. "We have." His hand froze in midair. The smile vanished. I watched the color drain from his face as recognition dawned. 15 years had passed, but in that moment, he saw the young, ambitious partner he had betrayed. "Scarlett," he whispered, the sound barely audible. "Hello, Daniel," I replied. It has been a while. The room had gone completely silent. Daniel's legal team was exchanging frantic glances. The Synergy Solutions executives looked confused, then concerned. What are you doing here?" Daniel stammered, trying to regain his composure, though his hands were trembling. I picked up the stack of documents from the table, my proof. "I am here," I said, addressing the room now, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces, "to vote on the merger. Or rather, my companies are here to vote. Phoenix Holdings, Sunrise Investments, Blue Ocean Capital. I believe you have been trying to identify these shareholders for weeks now, Daniel." Daniel sank into the chair behind him, his legs seemingly unable to support him. "That is impossible," he whispered, shaking his head. "You sold your shares." "I made sure." "You made sure I sold my original shares," I corrected him, stepping towards the center of the room. "But I have been buying back into the company for 15 years. Through shell companies, through proxy investors, through every legal means available. Would you like to know how much I control now?" His lawyers were frantically flipping through papers, their faces growing paler by the second. The Synergy Solutions team looked towards Mr. Harrison, who wore a grim expression. 60%, I announced to the room, my voice ringing with authority. "I own 60% of Sterling Corporation. Which means this merger does not happen without my approval." One of the lead Synergy Solutions executives cleared his throat. "Mr. Sterling, what exactly is going on here?" I turned to address the representatives from Synergy Solutions and the board members. "Allow me to tell you a story," I said. "A story about how Sterling Corp really began. About two partners who built something amazing until one of them saw an opportunity during the 2008 crisis to steal it. For the next 20 minutes, I laid out everything. The conspiracy, the accident, the emergency meeting called when I was incapacitated, the forged documents, the vicious smear campaign. I presented the evidence I had meticulously gathered over 15 years, discarded internal memos, notes from Daniel's private calls confirming his financial distress, and the critical proof I had recently found, the original and signed partnership agreement alongside the forged waiver, hidden away in a storage room Daniel thought nobody would ever find. I even included testimonies I had anonymously secured from former employees and minor board members who had been pushed out or silenced by Daniel over the years, now willing to speak the truth. "So you see," I concluded, looking directly at Daniel, who was now slumped in his chair, defeated. "Daniel Sterling is not the brilliant CEO who built this company alone. He is a fraud who stole it from his partner and has been running it into the ground ever since, culminating in this desperate attempt to use a merger to bail himself out of his own financial mismanagement." "That is a lie." Daniel shot to his feet, his voice hoarse. "I saved this company. I made it what it is today." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you were so desperate for this merger? Because the company is doing so well under your leadership?" Or is it, as my evidence shows, because the loans you took out for your aggressive expansion are coming due, and you do not have the cash to cover them without Synergy Solutions money? The Synergy Solutions team was murmuring among themselves. Their lead lawyer stood up. We need to pause this proceeding. There are serious questions regarding Mr. Sterling's authority and the company's financial status. Oh, the merger can still happen, I said calmly. Just not on Daniel's terms. And not with him as CEO. Daniel lunged across the table at me, all his carefully cultivated corporate polish evaporating in an instant. 2 security guards, the same ones I had seen Daniel berate countless times over the years, quickly moved in and grabbed his arms. You cannot do this, he shouted, struggling against them. This is my company. No, Daniel, I said, my voice quiet but firm. It never was. And now everyone knows it. The next few hours were a blur of controlled chaos. The Synergy Solutions team huddled with their lawyers, reviewing my evidence. Sterling Corp's board members, seeing which way the wind was blowing and faced with undeniable proof of fraud and my majority ownership, quickly distanced themselves from Daniel. His once loyal executives suddenly remembered urgent appointments elsewhere. By the end of the day, Daniel Sterling had been removed as CEO by an emergency board vote. The merger with Synergy Solutions was postponed indefinitely, pending a full investigation of Sterling Corp's finances and leadership under Daniel. And I, Scarlett Hayes, had been appointed interim CEO. Before the board members dispersed, still reeling from the day's events, I had one final detail to share. For the past 15 years, I told them, my gaze sweeping across the faces of people who had walked past me without a second thought, I have worked in this building as a facilities assistant. Under the name Sarah Jenkins. Their faces were priceless, a mixture of disbelief, shock, and dawning, deep embarrassment. Many of them had made eye contact with Sarah less times in 15 years than they had in the last hour. I have cleaned your offices, emptied your trash, restocked your supplies, I continued. I have observed your operations, listened to your conversations, and understood this company from the ground up. I know every strength and weakness, every loyal employee struggling under the radar, and every self-serving manager focused only on their bonus. I know who deserves promotion and who needs to go. And I know exactly how to fix what Daniel broke. That evening, after everyone had cleared out, I went back to the facilities closet one last time. I changed back into my old uniform. It felt strange, heavy with the weight of the past 15 years. I did a final round, saying goodbye to the night shift workers, including Maria, who had been my true colleagues in the shadows. You are really the new CEO? Maria asked, her eyes wide with astonishment. I am, I said, giving her a genuine smile. And my first act will be ensuring fair wages and better conditions for all maintenance and support staff. This company was built on your work, even if the executives never realized it. I ended my final shift in Daniel's former office, my office now. The same office I had cleaned every morning before dawn. I adjusted the desk back to a perfect right angle, not because Daniel demanded it, but because some habits die hard, and perhaps as a silent acknowledgement of the years I spent observing from the periphery. A movement caught my eye. Daniel was in the hallway, escorted by 2 security guards. Jim was one of them, his expression unreadable, carrying a single box of personal items. He saw me standing in his former office, still in my facilities uniform, and stopped. His face contorted with fury and disbelief. 15 years, he spat, the sound venomous. You spent 15 years cleaning toilets just to get revenge? I stood straight, looking him directly in the eye. No, Daniel, I said, my voice calm. I spent 15 years learning every detail of the company you thought you stole from me, waiting for the moment you would finally trip over your own arrogance. The cleaning was just good, honest work. Something you never understood the value of. He left without another word, his expensive shoes clicking down the hallway for the last time, the sound strangely hollow in the vast silence. The next morning, I arrived wearing my suit again, but I made sure everyone knew that my door was always open to any employee, regardless of their position. Because I had learned something invaluable during those 15 years of invisibility. The real heart of a company is not in its executive suites or on its stock charts. It is in the people who show up every single day, at every level, to do the work others do not see. Some of the board members suggested I hire a cleaning service specifically for my office. I declined. Every morning, I still come in early to clean my own space. It keeps me grounded, reminds me of the lessons I learned during those 15 years of watching and waiting. It reminds me of the people like Maria and James who keep things running, the people Daniel never truly saw. Daniel Sterling, I hear, is working as a mid-level manager at a small, anonymous company across town. Sometimes he tells people he used to be a CEO, but no one really believes him. After all, he just does not look the part anymore. As for me, I am exactly where I belong. Running the company I helped build, making it better, stronger, and more humane than it ever was under Daniel's leadership. And every morning, when I adjust my desk to perfect right angles, I smile at the truth Daniel never understood. Sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the one you have spent years walking right past.